There are only two objective truths in all the world: that you can learn a lot about someone from their behavior at a four-way stop, and that simple finger-picked exercises on nylon string guitar are the best way to impress anybody. So today we're going to talk about some really simple beginner stuff you can do. I'm using nylon string. This is going to work on pretty much any guitar, but it's just really easy stuff that sounds absolutely beautiful, gorgeous. It'll impress significant others or whoever else you want. And it's just a simple 1-4-5 in the key of G. It's going to sound like this. And I'll just play it really quick and then we'll talk about how we play it. It sounds fast, but like, trust me, it's not bad, okay? So, I did an unboxing of this guitar. This is a super affordable tour player guitar, semi-hollow, nylon. It sounds great. I'm just going through a Bose PA with some reverb on it. That's number one. Put some reverb on your guitar tone and it'll instantly sound way better, all right? So what I'm doing here is I'm taking a G major shape, all right? And the first thing we have to do is just do a really, really easy pattern. Now what my thumb on my right hand is gonna be doing is gonna be jumping from the G on the E string, 3rd fret, middle finger, to the open D string, okay? So this is what you have to do. You have to practice this first. This little string hopping exercise, E to D, okay? Just like that. And then after that, what we're gonna do is we're gonna add your pointer finger up on the G string in between. Okay? Just like that. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and, okay? It helps to count the number out loud while you're actually doing it. Trust me, it may sound like silly to be like 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and, but it really, really helps. Now the first thing we might want to do before we add some of the flourishes into it is to talk about where the other chords are going to go. I said this is a 1-4-5 in the key of G. All that means is you start on G, the next note after G in the musical alphabet will be A, B, C is 4, and D is 5. That's why so many times you'll see like a G major to a D, C major to a D major chord back to G. That's a 1-4-5, the most common chord progression in the history of all of music, right? So really, we're just going to talk about changing the root note to be a 1-4-5, 3 on the E string, 3 on the A string, 5 on the A string, G, C, and D, okay? So what we're gonna do is, for the G chord, go back and forth between G and D. Then we're just gonna move the first note to the A string, like this. My pointer finger's still getting that G string in between every note. And then the 5th fret on the A string, right? So G, D, G, D, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and C. So now my thumb is striking the A string. A little bit more difficult because now you're inside the string set, right? Now this doesn't sound right until the next part because we're getting a D, a G, and another D, the same note. But trust me, it's all gonna come together and it's gonna sound great once we add this small flourish, all right? So let's focus on just G major's part of this, and it sounds like this. Okay, this is the first thing that we're gonna do. So what I'm doing is I'm G, G, and then in between my thumb jumping back to the E string, I'm hammering down on the D string 2nd fret, okay? So we're not actually plucking this note, you're actually using the force of your pointer finger to come down and play that note in between, all right? 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and. See how it kind of jumps in between there? So the move is, we're kind of getting a hammer, G, G, right? So it happens, it's an action that happens in between. So if you want to count that out loud, that can help, but really just practice maybe one thing to do if you're having trouble getting the timing right is to drill just one part. If I'm ever having trouble with a guitar part, or really an instrument, any instrument, I'll just drill it over and over and over again. Okay? Think of it as a riff. Hammer, G, G. And how good does it sound on this Ortega guitar? They sponsored this video, guys. Click the link in the description because this is way less expensive than you think it is. Look at how gorgeous, like, the top and the back look on this guitar. It's like actually amazing. I am so in love with how this guitar plays and feels. Again, if you don't have a nylon string, super good to just have one around, even just as a backup guitar, but right there, you can just think of it as a little riff. Hammer, G, G. So we'll make this the first exercise, right? See how it sounds? Once you kind of speed it up, it sounds like there's almost like a bunch of different fingers playing it at the same time. So again, it's just a little hammer-on move that you could do really for any of these chords. Now, the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna try that same thing on the C chord. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and hammer and 2 and 3 and there we go, then G. And now we're gonna add to this pattern in a second, but I think the main takeaway from this lesson is not to play this specific thing that I'm playing, but to create an infrastructure of playing with these patterns and some other notes I'm gonna show you that you can create your own vibe, and it's always gonna sound pretty, okay? Again, with this G shape, any of the notes in the G major scale are gonna sound great. So what we're doing here is if we think of the notes in the G major scale, G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G, or in frets, 3, 5 on the E string, 2, 3, 5 on the A string, 2, 4, 5 on the D string, G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G. We're actually going G, D, and then G, G, D, G. And then from that hammer on, I'm hammering on a D to an E. So you can think of this as like a G major 6 pattern, and then what we're gonna do now is we're gonna add the 7th note in the scale to this, an F sharp, the 4th fret on the D string. Okay, I'm using my pinky to play it. Okay, so 1 and hammer and 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and so that second bar, I'm getting G, G, F sharp, G, okay? So there's a little bit of dissonance because these notes are so close to each other, but again, that's like indicative of a G major 7 chord, and I think it just sounds really pretty. F sharp, E. Just practice that. You can hammer on that too. See, I did that in between. Pull off. And it sounds like you're doing something really fast, but it's these little in-between hammer-ons and pull-offs that give it the flavor, okay? So we can do the same fingering, but then just change the bass note. We're gonna go to the 4 chord, C. And then, since we only changed the bass note, but the D string notes stayed the same, technically these are kind of different chords. Instead of being like a G and it's 6 and a G and it's 7th, now it's a C and it's major 3rd and it's sharp 4, which again is still just really pretty in the context of this pattern, right? So we can think of this as changing chords, or we can just think of it as taking a pattern and then swapping the bass note or root note out of what we're doing, okay? So when we do that with that C, again, if your pinky is difficult to use, try it with your ring finger. And the nice thing is you don't have to necessarily keep this on because that can be a reach. So really, just kind of do whatever you can to help close that gap, and then eventually your fingers will start to learn to reach with it, okay? Again, it sounds a lot more impressive than it actually is. I do think this is a very beginner-friendly fingerstyle pattern and just kind of fingering exercise. Now let's go to the 5 chord for this next part, right? And what we're gonna do is, instead of doing the exact same shape, we're gonna do this. Okay, we can still do the hammer on. But now instead of going to the one like this, so if I'm on 5A, hammer on to 4D, right? If I do the 4th note here, that note's not in the key, so that's why it sounds bad. So that's why we're gonna go to the 5th fret on the D string. So for the D chord, it's I'm going between 4 on the D string and 5 on the D string. Because again, D, E, F sharp, G, we're in the key of G still, even though we're playing a D chord. If we play that G sharp, that's too much, okay? So we've got G, it's 6, and it's 7th. C, it's major 3rd, and it's sharp 4, will be the name of that. And then we have D, it's major 3rd, and it's 4th, okay? And then back to G. So, all together, when you do it, it sounds like this. Then C. Then to the D chord. Then maybe C. Then G. G, G. Now, again, I was doing a very methodical way of swapping out the other notes in the key, but feel free to get creative and use any of them. In fact, we could even bring another string into it if you want to do a little bit more advanced fingerstyle, because again, this is just really like your thumb jumping back and forth between the E or the A and the D string, and then your pointer finger getting in the vibe at the middle. Now what you could do is maybe add your middle finger on that B string, and then like there, I'm still doing that back and forth with the thumb. All right, that's what we were doing. And now I'm adding that middle finger in there. Okay, that would be the next step. And then I think that actually kind of adds a lot when you kind of add that middle finger into the game. The next step from there, to kind of make it sound a little more dynamic, would be to add a palm mute to it. So now it's... See, I'm kind of getting... Now that low E string specifically is muted, and then the more you dig in, the more you can kind of get the other strings muted there. And then it has more of a percussive vibe. Travis style picking. It's kind of like one of my favorite styles of picking. That really involves a pretty heavily muted bridge. But again, there's like a lot of different techniques and stuff, but it all really starts with a simple pattern, knowing a little bit about the scale to make it work, and then having just like a good sounding Ortega nylon string guitar. So thank you to them for sending this guitar over. If you guys have any questions or comments, hit me up in the comment section, Instagram, or the website, and I will talk to you all soon. Thanks for watching.